I was watching this movie last night, and it's kind of funny because, well, there's a lot more meaning in here than people typically understand. But from what I understand by watching this movie now, is that there are people out there that have an understanding of these scriptures and the ancient methods of translating. And these people were involved in the directing or script writing or both or financing or whatever it is of this movie called the Zohan. Now recently I was doing a video on Israel, where the top Israel was the renaming of Jacob and the bottom Israel is the death angel or death messenger. And in doing that video, my research uncovered what would be known as the cut-off spirit, which is Hebrew word H2088. Now the Zohan, you see three consonants there, the Z, the H, and an N. This would be a Z, this would be an H, this would be an N. The N just means activity or life. So that would be the cut-off spirit's activity. Now in this movie, the Zohan, which is played by Adam Sandler, is a militant, an Israeli militant, and he's very good at what he does. He captures terrorists and does that type of thing. He's well sought after. He has a bit of arrogance as they start the movie off, but it's kind of all done in a humorous fashion. So anyhow, basically he goes to cut off, cut down people. Now he's unhappy with his life, and he decides that he wants to go to America, and he wants to be a hairdresser, which now the cut-off spirit of the Zohan wants to cut hair, which I thought that was really humorous, and to me it tells me that there are people that understand this cut-off spirit, and they're making fun of it. They think it's funny, and it is funny. And so anyhow, Adam Sandler, the Zohan's parents, start laughing at him when he tells them what he wants to do. And it starts off with his dad, his Abba, calling him a fagala. And so they're insinuating he's a homosexual. He's a fag. Now, I started laughing when I heard that, and I've seen this movie before, but I was just doing the research I was telling you about, which brought me into the renaming of Jacob. And when I was reading about that, I was like, oh my word, look at what's written in here. But this video that I was watching kind of confirms it, so I gotta kind of hurry up because I'm losing time here and I don't like really long videos. So anyhow, starting in Genesis 32:24. This is the, by the way, this is the cut-off spirit activity that's being made fun of in the Zohan movie. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with, now the word with is should be looking for trouble. I'm going to see if I can read this and put in what the translations should be. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man looking for trouble until the breaking of day. And when he saw that he prevailed not against, he laid upon the middle of the soft flesh, the middle of Jacob's soft flesh, impaled him as he wrestled. Sounds a little different, doesn't it, than what's typically there, what's typically reading about touching the hollow of his thigh. This is why they were calling the cut-off spirit a fagala, because this man that was looking for trouble laid upon the middle of the soft flesh, the middle of Jacob's soft flesh, and impaled as he wrestled with him. What could that have been? Well, it could have been a little fagala thing going on there. So anyhow, maybe he stabbed him with a sword. Okay, we're going to say a sword because instead of stabbing him with something else, it doesn't sound as bad. It doesn't sound as queer as is it probably was. And he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, tongue spirit, send out the curse work of the ego's chaos. Kneel down. And he said unto him, what, thy name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, thy name shall be called no more Jacob. The curse work of the ego's chaos, which is the chaotic mind. The curse work of the chaotic mind alters to make consume person's head messenger. That's the word Israel translated letter by letter, picture by picture. To make consume person's head messenger. For as a prince hast thou power to look for trouble. The ego led spirit to make chaos, to look for trouble. Man works a curse of the captive's tongue. And Jacob demanded an answer to explain now the name, he said, exclaiming, cut off spirit demands the name, the shame, to kneel in it. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel. And because of the name of the place, I'm sure that's why the joke thing about the fagula and the cut off spirit, because of that name Peniel, that when somebody reads that, they say, oh my God, that's a pretty common name. We know what that means. That's reference to a male appendage. Was it or was it not? We don't really know. All we know is that this man that was looking for trouble laid upon the middle of the soft flesh of Jacob, and it impaled him. We don't know what that really means. He could have been laying on top of him. He could have taken a sword and stuck it in his side. That could have been what really happened. But with this word penial in there, and then reading about how vaguely it's written about impaling and soft flesh and middle, it can draw a picture in the mind that there could have been something else going on. But anyhow, penial means mouth activity secures the ego's tongue. That means when you get somebody to talk and to say something, that can secure the tongue of their ego. That's grooming them. That's brainwashing. That's what the name Israel means. And to continue on there, actually I'll stop back 32:30. And Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, which means mouth activity secures the ego's tongue. For I have seen, and this was the word Elohim, but this is a new translation of it, the ego that leads the spirit to make chaos. Face to face in my life, activity directs the tongue, which is a further confirmation of what's going on, that it's a brainwashing. It's the activity directs the tongue. It's because of what happened grooms how the person will speak. And again, go back to Israel, the translation of Israel, to make consume person's head messenger. It's about brainwashing. That's what it's about. As I showed in the prior video, Israel with the S, Israel with the Z. One's about brainwashing, one's about watching cut off the person's head. Two different messengers. Do they work together? That's the major question. Do they work together? Right now, there's a group out there known as ISIS, which would be, in actuality, the two ISIS. You know, like Bill Clinton said, it depends on what the word is. Okay? Two ISIS. This is IS, this is IZ, ISIS. Them two put together. One's brainwashing, one's cutting off a person's head. Cutting off a person's head leads to brainwashing. Brainwashing leads to cutting off people's heads. It's a vicious circle. But we see that's what's going on in the Middle East, because that's where these satanic writings originated from. And the people who are the leaders, the head people, the head religious people of the churches and the religions, and the powerful money people, which are making satire of the scripture that they obviously know about, they're the ones who are the real problem. Because if they have the power and the ability to sway people's minds in this fashion, brainwashing to cut off people's heads, or cutting off people's heads to brainwash, if they have that power in their hands to do that and manipulate people like that, they could manipulate people the opposite way, but they choose not to, because there is much more profit in death. And that's what this whole Israel, angel of death, messenger of death, Holocaust that has gone on since the beginning of those people, where they would sacrifice their own people for profit. And it's a very simple thing. You have a village, you have 100 people there. 50 people get killed off, the other 50 retain the wealth of those other 50. But does the community really retain the wealth? Well, they're these communist societies, so they think that they do, that they share in the wealth, but there's always the leaders. So out of those 100 people, let's say there was 3 leaders. So it's really 3 controlling the wealth, which was divided up amongst 100. They stole from the 50, so now the leaders have half of what was there. This is the same thing that goes on in the world today. When you see these horrible things going on in countries, you look in Iraq and you see ISIS running amok there, cutting people's heads off to gain control. What did they go? They snatched up control of the oil wells, which means money. It's always about the money, the wealth, the power, the control. It never, never changes. Why can't these people take that wealth, that power and control that they have over people's minds and do something good with it? Why? Why do they choose not to do that? Why do they choose to stick with the serpent religion? That is the religion that we're talking about. That is the religion of the Bible, which is actually the Babel, the Holy Bible, which is actually the Holocaust Babel, or the victims Babel. And that's another thing that's being spoken about the grooming of the language. The victim says certain things just because they were victimized. And this is being done to entire cultures, entire nations, and it's trying to be done to the entire world. Why do they have to be victimized in order for them to do something, whether it be good or bad? Now you can say with religions that sometimes it's good, that these people are brainwashed and manipulated. Some of them, in the United States, I'll use the example of the United States. You look at these so-called Christian churches, you have people that were doing horrible things in their younger years, and then they go to the Christian church and they get brainwashed by the Christian church. They get convinced of a myth, a deity that lives or resides in this universe, or out in space, or in the ether around you, or something like that. That's not the person, but the person can connect with that thing and have a personal relationship. Why do they need that in order to behave decently? You really have to think about that. Why do those people need to think it's not them? Why do they think differently? And I'll tell you why. Because the same people that brainwash them, all right, and say that they need this ether thing, this something else that's there, because they're naturally bad, they're naturally evil, and they need to be controlled. That's the end result. Because first they brainwash them and tell them they're evil, they're evil, they're evil, they're evil, they're evil, they're evil, they're evil. They can never be good. They can never be good. They need this other thing to be good. What is this other thing? This other thing, this God, this is what they control. Okay? It's the same as old today. It's the same today as it was then. God, the pit door, the people in control of the pit. whether it's a mythical thing that they're talking about, just using their tongue and using language, which is brainwashing, which is what all these scriptures are about, or it's a physical pit where somebody's going to cut your head off and throw your body in there. But it's still the same notion, because the one controlling the door is the one that has the power. And this power is being abused. This power is being abused. This power I'm talking about. And it's been abused worldwide for thousands of years. The only way it's going to change is when the population wants to change it. You know, people say, well, oh gee, you know, there's going to be a second coming of Jesus. And he's going to come with an iron fist. And they're all excited about that. And they're all about, wait a minute. These people are angry. They're angry. They're people that are victimized. And they're so pissed off, they're so angry, they can hardly wait for the day of revenge. And that's all that it's all about. They spend their entire lives thinking about revenge. How about we work towards making this world a decent world? How about we work towards rebuilding this world into something that's good? Okay? Self-defense is what we need. That's all we need, is self-defense. We don't have to go out with an offense against the entire friggin' world. Okay? Right now, the condition of the United States, they don't have any moral authority as a country. We really don't. Because our leaders have let us down time and time and time again, because they're along with this whole brainwashing thing too. They're corrupt. It's all about corruption. It's all about the mind being corrupted. Those people are corrupted with money and power. Their mind is corrupted. It's polluted. And they're not doing the right things. They're off having vacation. President Obama goes and plays golf all the time. He does a speech. He does one thing here. He does one thing there that he wants to achieve. Maybe he has done a few things that are good. Maybe he has done things that are bad. But is he working in the best interest of our country is the end result. And not just him. I'm not trying to just pick on President Obama because he's the current president. You know, we have a serious issue going on in this country. And it's been going on for over 100 years, and it's the monetary system. The monetary system is a way that the world people, the international people, extract profit out of this nation just by the very existence of this nation and the money that the government uses. Because they control the money and they extract profits out of interest and dividends, and they've been doing it since the beginning of it. The Constitution allows for a monetary system managed by the federal government to regulate and control the value thereof. It has the ability to write bills of credit, which is money, which is the reason that has been used to use paper money instead of gold and silver. It is the states that are only allowed to make money out of gold and silver. But the federal government, with the taxation system that we have, is the monetary system that was left for us by our forefathers when we were ready to stand up and use it properly. There is no reason that we have to have gold and silver or anything whatsoever backing our monetary system, but for the international people, the worldwide people, need that physical security. They need a physical security of gold and silver, so when they collapse an economy, when they collapse a country, they take that gold and silver and they bring it to another country and use it in that country. And that's what they have always done. We have a huge budget right now. We got a $4 trillion budget coming up. Our country could print that $4 trillion out of nothing, out of thin air. Instead, the way that they choose to print it is to borrow it, print it, pay interest to it, which means they're paying interest, which amounts ends up being dividends through the way that they launder the money, which is profits. They're paying a percentage to people for nothing, for zero. Do you understand? These people are extracting these profits and have done so for over 100 years for nothing.